All right, welcome everybody. I'd like to call our March 11th regular meeting of the Board of Education meeting to order at 6:31. And let's start with a Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, let's go ahead with our roll call. Ms. Meyer.
Sure. President McIntyre.
I'm here.
Vice President Campbell-Voitel.
I am here.
Treasurer Stewart.
Here.
I'm here. Secretary Meyer. Trustee Frazier.
Here.
Trustee Mabry.
Here.
Trustee Maurer.
Here.
All right, welcome everybody. And we are also joined by our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. R.J. Weber.
Good evening.
And members of our COLT team.
And
welcome,
tonight, Dr. Brock is ill. She did come in and help us with something in the afternoon. So she will not be in attendance, but the rest of our erstwhile gang is here. It's good to see him.
All right, thank you, Dr. Weber. All right, let's move forward with our adoption of the agenda.
Yes. Madam President, I bring motion 88 that the agenda be adopted as presented.
Support. All right, we have a motion. We have a motion properly presented by Dr. Campbell-Voitel, supported by Treasurer Stewart. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next, we have our consent resolutions. Dr. Campbell-Voitel.
You'll explain that?
Yeah.
Okay. So I bring motion 89 that the board accept the consent items for approval as follows. 5A, minutes of February 25th, 2025 Board of Ed meeting. 6B. I don't know about that. Somehow 5B. 2025-26 limited schools of choice. 5C, second reading and adoption of policy 2120, student enrollment of children of employees and board and the board standards of practice, two separate segments. And 6D, 5D, overnight and or out-of-state field trips as follows. 5D1, NHS Boys Cross Country Team Camp in Glen Arbor, Michigan from August 11th through 14th, 2025. 5D2, NHS Varsity Softball Invitational in Grand Rapids, Michigan from May 2nd and 3rd, 2025. 5D3, NHS Track and Field State Championship in Grand Rapids, Michigan on May 30th or 31st, 2025. And 5D4, NHS Track and Field Invitational in Rockford, Michigan from April 17th through 18th, 2025. And let's see, 5E, bill warrants totaling $3,514,433.58.
Thank you. All right, motion properly presented by Dr. Campbell-Voitel, supported by Mr. Frazier. Our consent resolution items are items that the board has either discussed in previous meetings or we have seen in other ways, particularly the overnight and out-of-state field trip requests. Those are included in our board packet, board book. And all right, and also our bill warrants, we have seen that under separate cover also.
I just wanted to mention the numbering. I don't know when this would be utilized again. Right? I don't know if it's.
In the agenda, it tells you actions, and I've been trying to clean it up, and it automatically does the weird thing with the numbers.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you gotta love technology.
Certainly. Didn't take much to throw me off.
Yeah.
What number are we on?
Thank you. Okay. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries. And then next we have our communications.
Yes, we've received emails through npsboe@northvilleschools.org, and we also received the Wayne Risa board highlights for February 2025.
And then I think we also,
I'm
the
sorry.
Northville Youth Network.
Yes, the Northville Youth Network report from February 2025.
Okay, wonderful. Any comments from board members about any of those items?
Just that, as always, Northville Youth Network is keeping busy in the schools and doing their best to support all of our students. We thank them for that.
Yep, for sure.
I did note in the Wayne Reese report that they saw an increase of 1.14% of graduation rates. So Wayne County is at 78.3. Let's just go with 78% graduation rate. I know that our district is much higher than that. The state's at 82%. I think it's just something to be mindful of. We take for granted how wonderful our graduation rates are. And also, kudos to those districts that are in Wayne Reese that are working to elevate that across the county.
Thanks for saying that, Karen. In the superintendent meetings that I attend, one, undeniably, every month I meet with each of the superintendents. The privilege that we have it's obvious, and it's one of the first things I said to the group when I first met them 2.5 years ago. But how hard an incremental move like that, and what I'm seeing my colleagues in Wayne County to claw to get that is impressive. There was a pretty big, simple thing, like for us, that wouldn't even enter our minds, like get your kids to school. Like a huge effort just for attendance.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that it's important we recognize and publicly affirm that while we understand we're in a really good spot, that a lot of our brothers and sisters who are on school boards and who serve the schools in Wayne County, in some of those communities, the struggle is real every minute. So thank you for bringing light to that.
And the only other thing I wanted to mention was I wanted to thank the Northville Youth Network for working with the Mustang Mentors. I mean, I really enjoyed hearing from that program in the high school, and I'm so glad that they're a part of it. So that's it.
Yeah, agreed. All right, thank you. All right, Dr. Weber, Superintendent's
All right,
report.
let's do it. So first, we have in the governor's State of the State address, she had made mention around a statewide cell phone approach. And so, as you all know, we implemented that at the beginning of this year. I was interviewed by Bridge Magazine a couple of weeks ago around it, and we were able to find at least some inklings of the direction that they may go. So if you just take a moment and take a look at those boxes and kind of see where it corresponds with maybe what we have already done. So we're not saying that they took the Northville way and just inserted it, but if you look, you're going to see that it tracks on these pieces. And in the 912, that is something that our teachers do individually, as far as if they want them to use the devices or not. Put them in baskets before they go to the bathroom, so they're not scrolling for 20 minutes when they go out. But that graduated approach that our board took is one through our own due diligence and from what you all wanted, is one that could be coming to the state. One of the questions, it was actually an off-the-record question, but I'll share it. The reporter asked me, so why do you think this is getting traction? And as a social studies teacher, it's a pretty easy win for any politician, frankly. Doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, we're all struggling with it. And so I said, that's why one of the things I think you're going to see is it's maybe one of the few things that it feels like we can agree on, that we have issues there. So that was that. Any questions or wonderings around that? And obviously, some of you have great relationships with our state reps and talk to them regularly. So maybe as you hear more coming through the House and whatnot, you can let me know.
I do have a wondering
Yep.
about it. And because I know we supported it and we supported having a policy on it, but how do you see this being implemented? How do you see, if this is coming from the state,
Mm-hmm.
what that means for individual districts? Is this an unfunded Band-Aid? How would this
Yeah, and
work
this,
operationally that they
I would
could
say,
have a law
yeah.
that would do that?
I would say that we share a border with a district that chose to go a different route. And I'm really proud of us, frankly, that we chose to use policy and expectations and clarity over a physical piece. There's things called yonder pouches.
Mm-hmm.
And in my mind, the thing that I was against that for was, I believe in our kids, I believe in our parents, I believe in our educators. Having to put a device in something and then having a magnet to undo it, And then the expense of it, those aren't free. So as far as unfunded mandate aspect, if people chose the same approach that we did, then the upfront cost is not there. Now, implementation of time spent with administrators in districts, if perhaps the students or the parents weren't as supportive, that's definitely a cost that you're not going to see a bright line, bottom line on. Devin could show us like how much it would cost to buy enough things to put them in. That's one thing, but tracking how much time we spend, that'd be the only thing I could see.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh. Thank you. Oh, my glasses, sorry. All right, we'll go to the next slide. So wanted to give you a little bit of an update on Final Site, what's happening this week, which I'm terribly excited about. Is that working? I'm opening it here. Yay. Thanks, Ken or Megan. Appreciate that. So this is also obviously on this screen. I have my own hard copy.
Make it bigger. I can't read that.
Miss Stewart. I just had to buy, I went from 1.5 readers to 2 this weekend because I noticed I was even doing this with my
I've
readers.
got really strong glasses. And I
mean,
can't read that.
I couldn't even see that.
Ooh.
Thank you for making it bigger.
Much better.
Yeah, much
Right
better.
on.
Thank you.
So let's take a look. Just this is for your own edification, and I know some questions, perhaps from a community member or two around this. So really, it started August 2nd, 2024. Had a meeting with Final Site, and then again brought it up at Comm subcommittee as far as Final Site, but also a macro view of different website providers. You'll see that Apogee, Parent Square, Edleo were all other firms that we met with. We continued to meet. Sorry, away from the mic here. Provided the board with information, cow discussions, Final Site on Fridays. And then for those people wondering what the Friday is, I communicate with the board every Friday. It's an opportunity for me to kind of take the week in stride and make people aware. And provided that all of those there. So that's the timeline, if you will, of it. We have weekly meetings with Final Site every Tuesday at 11 a.m. And I can say that those have been profoundly illuminating. Out of today's meeting came some analytics that really surprised the people at Final Site, where our website is not being utilized to the levels that they would have expected, our current website. And then we started to have a conversation around Facebook pages that, from my understanding, and I know a couple of you are going to probably help me out on this, each building has a parent administrated or parent run, help me.
Yep.
Okay. Like Facebook page. And so our wondering is, does that mean that people are going to that because it's germane to their school for basic information rather than actually coming to our site, which should really be the portal for everything. Last week, we had a conversation and talked about, she said in the meeting, it sounds like what you want is more of what like a private school does. And I'm like, help me understand what you mean by that. And she said, well, because not a lot of public schools have the vision to go towards a storytelling basis of their site. And it makes complete sense when you think about private schools, parochials that are trying to recruit kids, that they want to tell their story from jump of why that would be a great school to go to. And so these are examples of different things that have just happened along the way in really positive ways. And then Thursday and Friday, we're going to have 90 different constituents from across the district and community interact with a person from Final Site who will gather as much information as she can to help us make right and good moves going forward. So just wanted to provide you all with that information and can answer any questions on that. And then after this, Mr. Kling, thanks for doing me a solid. Knowing that tonight after this meeting, we have quite a big meeting that you play a big part in. I won't say big again because it's twice. No, the team, but like your technical knowledge is there. But Devin put together a nice brief presentation on the differences in how we fund things, whether they're purchase services, whether they're capital outlays or supplies. So I believe all of you, should have seen invites come through. I know a few of you, quorum, hello, quorum. It's hard to have four of you in the same room at the same time. OMA. But the fact is the mayor is going to be involved, parents, kids, staff members, a total of 80 to 90. And when I look back and try to do some digging on our past efforts with how we do these things, I couldn't find, and it could have happened, I just couldn't find evidence that we've ever engaged the community to this level on something like this.
I was curious to know about if I hear what you're saying for sure. There's definitely good community engagement. Excited to see that.
Yeah.
Excited to be a part of that. To me, my curiosity is piqued about those Facebook pages or groups because I think those do get a lot of traction, and I don't think that there's any analytics that can be done on though they're not a business page.
Mm-hmm.
It's just part of it's just kind of started by PTA. So I wonder is there a way to switch that? Do we want to switch that? Were we getting survey data about that in the
Well, they
survey
are
sent out?
independent. So
Okay.
the biggest thumbnail that we did today and looked at was just simply how many people are following on that page.
Okay.
And then comparing followers on those pages with what we're seeing in our traffic.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we discussed today social. One thing that surprised the person from Final Site is when she was looking at the analytics and doing the research, she actually said something, this is what they do around the country. And she said, this is an outlier that the majority of people are visiting your webpage are actually visiting from computers. And that struck her as odd in the sense that most people access via their phone. So there's another question to look at. What's the why behind that? People not find it useful? Do they find the Facebook page useful enough? We talked about social media and really with the change from Twitter to X, how the algorithms on that, people still use it, but as far as reach, it doesn't seem to be there. And Instagram is actually used far more by our students and some parents and athletic teams. And my simple anecdotal information on that is, I think I found the algorithm for Instagram in Northville at least. So the past month, I have an account that's just the school account. So I feature great things happening here. My two highest, like 4,000 views each, came when I tagged the girls basketball team. Don't know why. Just saying, I think I found a little bit of a backdoor there through the algorithm that if we want to get maximum exposure. And so really this effort, as well as how do people consume information with us? What are we not giving them? What are we giving them? I don't know the answer on the individual pages. My opinion would be, it would be really, really great if we could find a way to have people have so much faith in the information coming from our site that is their first check of when they need information. But maybe other folks around the table have a better insight on it than I do. I don't.
Having been
Yeah, talk to us.
admin on 2 of the school
You chose
Facebook
to do
page, and I was very happy the day I got to hand that over for both of those. A lot of what the PTA and the parent volunteers that run those Facebook pages, all we're doing is sharing the information that the principal sends out. We're sharing like, hey, did you see this email that came out? Everyone should have gotten this. And so I do think that it's kind of a consolidation for a lot of parents because there's so much information coming out in different mediums, which I think is good because we'll hit more people with that information if it's like posted on the website and the principal sends it out and there's an email. And so a lot of times, at least the ones that I have been the admin on, we would at the top of the page, it was a constant post that was at the top that said, if you have a specific question, please call the school. And it was reiterated often that we are parent volunteers. If you have specific questions or concerns, call the school. Check with the school website. And
yeah, and I think for you, I think if you all heard Ms. Stewart say what she said, she was happy to leave it. And if you don't know why, I can give you a couple examples that are non-specific but will resonate with everyone around this table. Unfortunately, those sites can then put the administrators in really awkward positions because somebody may post something on there that is hurtful, not true, salacious, and now you have a private person who's having to figure out, like, do I want to get called out for a freedom of speech issue, even though that doesn't seem like something that is unsubstantiated or whatnot. And so that's another kind of wondering. And then the survey that we put out 2 weeks ago, I believe we've had about 60 responses thus far. It picked up a little bit. And I'm not going to look at anybody around the table when I say this, but we had one elementary school that had a massive jump in the question that I got asked was, so tell me about Winchester. And I knew automatically that a couple people I know in here probably gave a little bump to make sure that parents jumped on there and gave us input. So I thank you without outing anybody. I'm grateful for that.
Interestingly, what I did is post a survey on our Facebook.
There it is. There it is. So we put it out in Connections. We put it on our website. We put it out on Insta. I think we put it out on Twitter. I can't call it the other thing. I just can't. Sorry. I'm just getting old and used to it. But there it is. There's a perfect example of something that I do believe we need to address, look at, see what benefits or not. But it worked because that was the direct question I got asked today.
I'd be curious to know. I personally posted on the high school page and the middle school page. I have a feeling that middle school and high school parents maybe don't return surveys quite as much as elementary school
I think
parents
you're
do.
100% right there.
I also posted it on the Northville News and Events page.
Mm-hmm.
Grateful that they posted that. And then, yeah, so it's like, how do we get more people to engage in that process? Because it is really important. And to hear that, right, that we're having more engagement on Facebook, which is run by parent volunteers, really want to see how can we move some of that, labor from parent volunteers to
Absolutely.
the website.
And as I said in my very first interview, you don't have to be sick to get better. And sometimes there are people who can get offended or feel offended if I point things out that I think we could do better, as if I'm saying or people are saying that that something is broken or not, whatever. And what I know is for our team as well, frankly, streamlining how we communicate with the public for the important issues that they all have, something that they can rely on is important. Mm-hmm. And we often, in this day and age, hear the word transparency or things of that nature. As a public school system, you've heard me say this many times, we are one of the most transparent organizations. We're more transparent, frankly, than the governor or the state legislature. Like, we can get FOIA'd. We have to share everything. The finances, they are all out there. That is the way it is. And I believe that's the way it should be. However, there's something after today's call and hearing why the spike happened that makes me wonder what we could do to really help. Because the goal of telling our story to people who might be moving into our community and also the people who are here to make them really proud of the district that their kids go to. And looking at websites from around the country, it's really amazing. And forgive me if some of you are in web design or marketing. I learned so much even just in today, like looking and seeing how we can share our story in a way that we're all very proud of and is inspiring and helps us appear as we should, which is a top tier district. Mm-hmm. That outward visage matches what we deliver. So I can't wait to dig into more of this. And none of you will hold back. We're in those focus groups, but like genuinely the person who's coming, I am so impressed with, and she is amazingly sharp and well-versed. And I think she's going to help us hone in on what's going on. And I think, Lisa, you're right. I think elementary by nature, we see higher engagement in so many things. Yep. It's not, we don't love our middle school and high school kids. It's just after just 6 years or so.
Well,
yep.
parents are really directing what's going on with their littles compared to middle and high school. That's students. That's your target audience, really, for communications direct to the students.
Yep, for sure.
I do have a question. When you were talking about the Facebook page, did you talk about the school district's Facebook page? And we have one, so what about that following? And did you discuss that one, or
a little bit? I think her questions today, she was really curious about why certain places were giving more, and that's when we were able to say to her, well, we know district or buildings have their own pages. In analytics, this is another benefit, frankly, of going with a professional organization like this. They've done more analytic work, frankly, for us in the past week and a half than I've seen in 2.5 years. Like, they have broken things down and really tried to look at where those things are, and we've tried, but it's a kind of a niche skill set. Some people might think it's, and Ron, your background, people think it's, well, you just open the page and it tells you. Well, there's a lot more you have to look at, see what time are people posting, what time are people consuming the information, when is the optimal time to send anything so it will land, and so on. So I'm not sure about the Facebook aspect of our own page. We didn't really discuss that with them today. But that's something that Thursday and Friday we can certainly dig into. And if any of you are in those spaces, feel free to ask her. She's looked into it, and that could be a good ask.
Yeah, I'm curious. Yeah, I'm excited to see how we can kind of transition this. Like, I wonder about, like, could there be a blog section in each of the school pages that then there can be this, like, consumable information that people can refer back to that starts to shift some of that responsibility from PTA presidents.
And I think it was Darby or Beth, that's her name, and the call today talked about the fact that a wondering, again, we had is with free lunch in school, universal school meals, has that caused a dip or a decline in website visits? And, unfortunately, I sit before you tonight, just before I walked into this room, finding out that every employee of the Department of Education has been told not to come into work tomorrow. And the initial looks at least half of those people will be unemployed after tomorrow. And that terrifies me. $1 billion was just cut from local food banks programs and schools getting foods from local vendors. So if indeed that initiative is taken away, not only in Michigan, but throughout the country, I think we'll see that website, our website, being even more important. How do we help families navigate challenges that they haven't had for a while? Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's just, I'm an armchair marketer and I love this stuff, but it's really, when you really start to dig in with people who know, it's like, wow, I didn't think about that. So
It makes me think too, like, how do we link to other community resources, right? That how do we link to Northville Parks and Rec? How do we link to the Northville Township? How do we link to Northville City? Do we want to do that? Is that part of that community, I don't know, connection piece?
And then text heavy. I think most of us who enjoy reading books, we enjoy reading books. But when you go to a website and it's 4 pages of text to get to something, that's not what you're into. So insights like that as well. How do we make things as easy to find as possible? But that's not the whole thing. How do we tell our story on a site that reaches into every nook and cranny of the world, frankly? How does somebody sit down and see it and say, these people have their act together? Like, not only is the product good, but the flow is there. So lots of more questions than answers, which I think is actually good in life. The next question, I think, is more important than the next answer. So I wanted to provide you all with an overview of that. Happy to answer any additional questions. I know I'm going to give Devin a second to get ready to get queued up. Part of the conversation, and it probably makes sense, is I think lay people might not fully understand mechanisms for how funding and purchasing is done in Michigan schools. And Devin, did you give hard copies and everything? Wow, look at that. And so we just thought we'd take just a couple minutes to review this with you. And again, I want to extend my gratitude to Mr. Kling for not only putting this summary together, but also leading us through it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I wanted to stand up and sit all day.
Yeah.
Who's ready to talk about purchasing?
Money, that's how we roll.
Reaction to
You're our
All right.
favorite person.
So we're a quick overview on school purchasing and how it kind of affects us at the school, and how we go through and analyze those purchases and requests. So talking about procurement, obviously, why is this important? Well, one, we use public funds, whether that's local, state, or federal funds. So obviously we want to protect the taxpayer dollars, and we want to make sure that the resources benefit the students, right? We want to make sure they're doing the job and it's efficient purchase. Two, we want to make sure we comply legally with the state. So that's following the state laws and regulations. And how do we do those two things? With a 3-filter system, I like to call it. So that's going to be, the 3 filters are: 1, state law and state requirements, bid threshold; 2, board policies; and then 3, administrative procedures that are built off of board policies. It's funny because they're all kind of built off of each other. The state law kind of dictates what we can do with what purchases. The policies are kind of built off of that state law, and then the procedures are built off of the policies. A little repetitive, but that's okay. All right, so filter number 1, state law. So what is the state law? There's something called a bid threshold. So it's a limit on the amount for a single purchase. That limit is $30,512. Sorry, $30,512 for 24-25. That applies to all purchases of construction, supplies, materials, and equipment. So it does not apply to purchase services or contracted services. It's updated annually. It's based on the CPI. They do it at the state. So we normally get an update every year on what that limit is for the following year. Oh, Consumer Price Index, sorry, CPI. So it's an inflation measure that they use. It's established by the Michigan Revised School Code. So that is the state law that we abide by. Now, what's played off of that is actually our board policies. Now, what are our board policies? They're actually 3003, which is the purchasing policies. There's 4 main parts of it. It's actually a very short policy. It's concise, but there's 4 main parts. 1, the superintendent is authorized. So the board authorizes the superintendent to purchase or supervise the purchase of all materials, equipment, supplies, and services necessary for the school district. So you guys give RJ the authority to kind of make that happen. Seek maximum value. Obviously, we have to seek maximum value with anything we get to make sure it's benefiting students. Competitive bidding. Superintendent will use competitive bidding when and as required by law. Again, that's the reference to the bid threshold. When it's required by law. What is that bid threshold? $30,512 on all purchases of construction, supplies, materials, and equipment. That's what it's referencing. For non-required purchases, so we can also go out to bid and take a deeper look at it if we want to. So kind of gives us the option. It's nice to have. Implement procedures. So this is the last part. That's then kind of the tail to the procedures part, right? So the superintendent is authorized to create administrative procedures to implement this purchasing policy. So these are the internal guidelines that we have at the district level for our administration and our principals and directors that might be the ones doing the purchasing. So again, it's kind of like they're all linked together, if that makes any sense. So our procedures are long. Policies are short, procedures are long. They kind of spell out a lot of different situations. I tried to summarize them the best I could in the next few slides, so bear with me. So purpose, ensure high quality and cost-effective purchases. We're trying to make sure that we again try to be efficient and make sure it's helping the students or the support services necessary. General principles must meet district needs, follow bidding laws, and make sure that they're properly documented. So again, going back to professional services, no mandatory annual rebidding or bidding in that case, but periodic competitive bidding might make sense, right? So perfect example, I don't know the last time we bid out our transportation services.
Right.
Right.
That's the
Yep.
example.
I don't know the last time we bid out our
12 years, I think, actually.
What?
I think it's like 12 years since.
I think you.
And I think we talked about that as a watch point, right? As something to consider for this
Yeah.
next go around.
This was the Price is Right, we'd be coming up here. So it's been a while. So that might be something we look to do as we move forward, right? We love our partners that we have, but it's always good to take a look, make sure you're paying paying market rates.
And planner would be another example.
Audit services, really any service that you can think of. Not required, but again, might make sense to do every once in a while. Supplies and equipment, mentioned this earlier, kind of in the state law. Purchases over the state bid threshold are required to be competitively bid and approved by the board, right? So those are those bond projects that we continually, naggingly bring up to you guys and say, hey, can we please do this? And we bid it out, and this is the best price for the project. Oh, sorry, the next construction projects, again, competitive bid is required on major projects. So supplies and materials and construction projects, again, bidding when needed. Moving on, continued on filter number 3. This kind of just, again, those are kind of the specifics. This more details the overall process. There's different thresholds based on federal and state laws. Again, if you're using federal dollars, there might be different rules associated with specific federal dollars. If you're using state dollars, obviously that complies with the state bid threshold. Approval authority, these are the different kind of categories up to $750. You know, you're looking for building administration, you're looking for director approval. Purchases over $10,000 require superintendent, and in some cases, board review. And large capital expenditures, again, that's the ones that are going to $10,000 and over the bid threshold. Those tend to be board reviewed and sometimes board approved if necessary, dictated by the state bid threshold. So again, policies referencing, or procedures referencing policies referencing state law. Emergency purchases, we are allowed to negate this whole process if there is an emergency. If we need a roof over our head, if we need fire suppression, something of that, we can just do it, and then we have to make sure we document it and report it promptly, because our auditors are going to want to know that. And then the procurement process, that is what we do in the business office. We make sure that there's a checks and balances to all purchases. The right approvers are on the right accounts, and they're seeing the right things come through, right? And there's a system to that. There's like RJ, myself, director, you know. So there's many layers to every purchase. And why do we do all this? Well, because we want best practices for school purchasing, right? We want to make sure that these plans align with the educational goals and physical realities of our school. We want to make sure that we're taking advantage of all competitive purchasing, so making sure we're in consortiums and taking advantage of scale when needed. We're making sure that we're recording all of the appropriate purchases, because every year we get audited. As RJ referenced earlier, we are a very transparent business. Everything is open. You can see it at any time. So we want to make sure we record it. And then last but not least, this is actually something I kind of want to talk to you later, but put a pin in it. Regular review. So some of our administrative procedures are, I want to say, dated. They're tied to dollar amounts that are old and they're not adjusting to inflation. So as costs go up, more and more fall under that filter of 10,000 and less. So that's something that we got to do as a district, regularly review these policies and procedures. In this case, it's mostly the procedures, and make adjustments as needed.
Is it disruptive if I ask a question now? Because I'll forget it by the time you're done. I'll go.
Absolutely.
So I just need a clarification. So the 30,512, is that the state's?
That's the state bid threshold. Yes.
Bid threshold. But then we have this, our bid purchasing and procurement administrative procedure that refers to cuts of 10,000 and 100,000. So is that are those the kind of obsolete thresholds? So I'm just looking at procurement of supplies, material, and equipment. I don't mean to get too in the weeds on this, Devin, if that wasn't your intent.
Okay, so again, so you have your state bid threshold, policy references the bid threshold. Administrative procedures are built by the school district's administration team to reference the policy. So within that procedure, there's different levels. So is this a federal purchase? Is it a construction purchase related to bond? Is it a general fund purchase? Is it a purchase service? So there's all these different guidelines
accountabilities depending on
underneath that.
the
Yeah, and
source of
so
the money, yeah.
perfect example, if it's a purchase service and it's over $10,000, board review, doesn't have to be board approved,
Right,
right?
right.
Other purchases over 10,000 might have to be board approved. Again, it's all based on those procedures.
Okay.
And some of it too, I remember in a previous finance subcommittee, I think you were there, when we went for the bond and after the whole bond, once the bond was supported and passed, I remember Mike coming and talking to us about, as we have change orders, as we have new things that come up with this bond, could we consider changing the procedure then that the board doesn't have to review every change order over $10,000? Because there's so much, and then there was the delay of how do we give that approval if you're meeting with the contractors who are, sometimes there is a delay between when they need that change order and when it needs to be implemented and when the board meets to give that review. But I don't know that it's made it into any type of procedure yet. So
I think it's been a number of years before, since that procedure's been updated.
Yeah.
Clearly. So, all right, well, that's very helpful.
Can you explain too, so if we have, there are times that this contracted services do come to the board. It seems like it's generally tied to architecture, any of that type of construction management piece, because it's tied to bond money.
So
Can you
again,
help us understand that difference?
That's a great point. So another part of it is you might have a purchase service that's actually tied to some actual construction
Mhm.
or improvement of the building. That will then be reviewed by the board because it's tied to that project. So it's all, again, administrative procedures for dealing with certain situations. that kind of thing.
So a concrete example of that, we put in the football field, I think, 2 years ago was one of the first bond projects.
Mhm.
But Foresight is a company, a service that helps. So there's that connection between the actual construction and then their insight on how to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of
I
times,
figure some folks might remember that one.
yeah, a lot of times they work hand in hand. Because maybe they're working on the project, but the project's tied to something else, so they kind of got those contract services have a hand in both
Yeah.
projects, so those would come to the board in that case.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Any questions from anybody?
It's very complicated. Because there's, what you're doing is you're kind of categorizing spending type, so is it a bond related expense or is it coming from another direction, rather it's a state money that you're spending anyway versus federal money. But then in this administrative procedure, it also divides out by micro purchases, small purchases, purchases requiring, there's other kinds of categories of trying to sort this out in terms of hierarchy of obligation to review versus approve, for the board. So it's complicated, Devin, really.
Yep.
Thank you for trying to begin this arc of understanding. I appreciate it.
And I think part of this is after, let's give Mr. Kling at least through his first audit, but I do believe there are some things that may have put in for a reason back in the day.
Yep.
That $10,000 now to have Steve or Devin have to come wait for a board meeting. To Lisa's point, when is that board meeting going to happen? So my guess is I love the fact that we're doing the finance at Cow, so all of us are hearing it and going, but I would think that after that first audit, it may be good to get a small group together to review the procedures.
Yeah, okay.
And just see, because you remember being in a meeting, I'm sure that's what happened, that was brought to the attention. But this
But if
is,
it didn't get
again,
applied,
to be
then-
sick to be better.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much
Thanks, Mr.
for
Kling.
this. That was super helpful, I think.
Yeah,
for
can we get-
current board members and newer board members.
Yeah.
Can you, before you walk away, we also talked about the fact that it doesn't matter if it's grant money or bond money or general fund, that it all has to follow the same procedures. Can you expound on that just a bit?
There's additional requirements based on whatever we're talking about. If it's general fund, there's specific requirements for general fund purchases.
Mhm.
It's just how many more requirements are there? If you have a grant, There might be, okay, now you have to follow general fund procedures and policies, and then, oh, by the way, there's also allowable expenses under this grant you gotta follow. And if there's bond projects, again, is it tying to the language of the bond? So it's just, they all fall under our general purchasing guidelines, but then there's just added on depending on what it is. Right?
So there's actually extra layers in a grant position, which I'm not going to put a quarter in Devin's back because he would rather get rid of grants and just let us manage our money. So.
Thank you. Super helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Devin. So, hey, look at all these logos. That's kind of neat. So the Board of Education, I Friday received I think Thursday night, a heads up, and then Friday, more communication, Saturday, more communication. I'm sorry for sending y'all that on Saturday. And then this right up here can give some final dispensation. Before I say anything on this, the respect I have for Brian Samolsky as our AD and Tony Koski as our principal, one of the greatest pleasures of my 2.5 years here is the ability to see those guys in action for our kids. So what happened is Livonia Schools made a choice on Friday to leave the KLAA. And that will not be for next year. That will actually start in 26-27. However, KLA bylaws, then we had to either disintegrate the KLAA or vote to amend the Constitution to push that decision till October 1st to give some time for due diligence. And Brian was basically the Henry Kissinger of athletic directors because we had a meeting with every superintendent, high school principal, and AD out of the KLA West. And then so if you look on the bottom there, Brighton, Canton, Heartland, Howell, Northville, Novi, Plymouth, and Salem. And then Brian, some of the things that came up were, well, have we interfaced with the East yet? Which Brian, stand-up guy, of course, not in 10 hours that we've got the information. But when we were doing our PEP Assembly Friday, he was tucked into his office, working the phones and calling. So I really give him a lot of credit. Also, Principal Carter at Novi High School, she and Tony worked really well on this because what you don't want is something like this to fracture relationships. And at the end of the day, it truly is about the kids that we serve. I'm a curriculum nerd. I love teaching and learning, but you ask many kids what their favorite thing to do at school is, it's going to be fine arts or athletics and those opportunities. Those are their passion centers that they really are attracted to. And so our goal is to make something work. And here is a write-up for you that explains it. If you see Brian or Tony along the way, please extend. I would appreciate your gratitude to them. They don't ask for it, but I've done this long enough when you see people who really know what they're doing. And, unfortunately, like the Livonia schools, as their enrollment declines a bit, it is hard sending a high school of 1,000 kids to compete against a high school of 2,500 kids. Like, that's not that much fun either as an athlete. And so there are a lot of different reasons, transportation and so on. But I appreciate the board being invested and appreciate a board member reaching out to me Saturday on information on that. Any questions, wonderings on this one?
So this is an evolving process right now.
Correct. Yeah. And luckily it's an evolving process because of the people on the bottom row there who really kicked into gear and decided, let's pause, let's breathe. But next year it'll stay the same. It'll be the year after but we'll have information on what that will look like.
But I'm assuming we would know it was going to happen well in advance to 26, 27.
Yep, definitely not going to do it the day before, I promise you that. So last week was Inclusion Week. Come on, Santer, come on now. That was for all, and thank you to the board on Friday for coming to the high school. Lisa, thank you for organizing so many people who make policy or execute policy to be there. It really surprised me, and I don't know, one of you told me that was for one of those folks, that was like the first time they'd ever been to like a high school PEP assembly.
For a unified game.
Yeah, and seen Unified in action. And last week, of course, we had Hillside. Meads had a beautiful multicultural night last week. Hillside basketball tomorrow. Beth, if you want to speak to, you have to hit your little button. what's happening tomorrow at Hillside.
Yeah, so tomorrow, it is actually a rescheduled, one of the rescheduled games from the snow days, Hillside and Livonia Frost. And what's exciting is that actually the Assistant Superintendent of Special Services for RISA, Dr. Jen Terriel, is managing to have her communications person come out so that they can cover the Livonia Northville teams, which will set up. She's invited Megan, myself, the director of Livonia, myself. I'm going to be bringing Mary Curran, Carrie Casebeer, and Kelsey McKitchick with me to the RISA board meeting in April. So they'll do some video that will introduce that presentation in April, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
And really so proud of our district that we serve as a public school. You guys have heard me say this many times. We serve each student in our community. The idea that something like Inclusion Week could bring, questions from some people around that because of the recent political climate, my opinion, is it's unfortunate. These kids, they're each of our kids. And for all of you who are able to attend or some part of it to see the true, genuine love. I mean, you heard the whole gym lit up when kids would sink a bucket. It was fantastic. And I'm really proud, Beth, with your leadership, but also the deep support of our school board, that we will continue to serve each student, however they may come to us. We will love them and we will educate them. Finally,
Wait, can I ask a
Sure,
question?
let's go back.
And not to conflate the last slide with this one. Would this impact Unified at all?
Oh,
The KLAA?
that's a good question. I don't know the answer. I'm gonna have to find that out. That's a good question. Because we compete, I hope it wouldn't, because Livonia has done a nice job as well. We're playing Frost tomorrow. But that's a great question. I need to ask Brian and just kind of see. I'm hoping Andrea will be there tomorrow. Let's just ask her. We'll make her sign some agreement. It's just too good to pass up. Thanks for asking that. That would be heartbreaking, actually, because Livonia has been really a good partner with us. At this very moment, Katie Rourke is accepting 2 awards in Traverse City at the Michigan School Public Relations Association. We shared this with you when we earned them. We're exceptionally proud of our communication efforts in the past couple of years and how they've grown. But we earned an award of merit for the Classroom Close-Up video series, which from an HR standpoint, and really Rebecca and Katie birthed that and got it moving. But from an HR standpoint, we're actually getting feedback from people we're hiring that they're watching those Classroom Close-Up videos to see what it's really like to work here. Because if you think about it, it's hard to conceptualize a classroom. And so I'm not sure how many Katie has, Rebecca or Darby, but I don't want to guess, but a lot of Classroom Close-Up videos in the library. So that's super helpful. And then we also earned the Award of Excellence for our podcasts. And I hope you all had a chance to listen to Mary Curran's story, and Lisa, we did one as well, I think just before that. And that's been a joy. So up in Traverse City right now, the Ville's getting recognized for doing some things really well on the communications front, and looking forward to seeing Katie and the awards and so on. I believe she'll be back in district Thursday for the Days with Final Sight. And that is my, NEF Glow Gala. Maybe one of you are going to speak to that, but I will report, I'll hold back, that my ensemble, which many people say I look like Vector from Despicable Me, I got over it. But the value I got from the glow in the dark shoes and it's a little teaser for we're going to talk about the Glow Gala, that I wore for the Sneaker Chic event, I've been able to parlay that into Hillside. I got to wear it for that game, and I got to wear it Friday. Like, I didn't know I was going to get that much use out of it. Yeah. And anyone who wants to borrow the shoes, they're size 12s, you're welcome to. I'll charge them up for you. And
Orange jumpsuit.
And the orange, you can have that too. Might be a little baggy on you, Kim, but you know what? Find a good tailor, and we'll see you walking around the Ville in your drip with your light up shoes and your orange dress. People might really start talking, but it's okay.
It's okay.
You know, we do
Sorry, a
us.
little
So that's
doubt.
that. Thank you so much. That's the conclusion of my report.
I gotta just really quickly, I have to jump in there. My daughter, 8th grade Hillside, came home from the Hillside Pep Rally, and I was like, "How was it? Oh my gosh, was it amazing?" And she was like, "Dr. Weber was in an orange tracksuit," and I was like, "That tracks."
Yeah.
Yeah,
The things I'll do for my
So
people.
You make an
Thank you.
impact all
The
around.
things I'll do for my people. The shoes, right, frankly, people say, how much were those? How much were those? And I'm telling you, like, modern manufacturing, $39.99, multi-light. I don't have interest in the company, but I'm happy to help anybody to get you into a pair if you want them. Orange pleather, I think. It wasn't real leather, so no animals were harmed in the construction of the shoes. Their durability might be down. So, but thank you all for your attention, Devin. Thank you for a really super clear and succinct help, I think, for the community. People might be wondering how that all works, and it is very complicated. I mean, school finance, and you're helping educate us around that with the 101 series you did in January with us to educate us. We're going to get some more education in a real way later tonight, but it is very confusing in so many ways, and don't ever feel bad having questions for Devin around that. You notice I said don't ever feel bad for having questions for me, for Devin, because Devin truly knows them deeply, and I'm grateful for that. So that's that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, this is our first opportunity then for public comment. We have no cards. Okay. Moving on to added agenda items then. Do you have any? Okay, we have no added agenda items. And then second opportunity for public comment. There's blue cards. If anybody would like to give public comment, we have none. All right. Moving then on to questions and comments from board members. Does anybody have anything they would like?
I do have one comment. It ties into inclusion. Today, I went to Cook School to read for March's Reading Month. I read to 3 different classes, and if anyone else is interested in reading at Cook, I'm sure they would be happy to accommodate you. The kids are wonderful there. So just you can contact Jen Bugar to set that up. But yeah, so I read to 3 different classes, and it was a lot of fun.
I love that.
I'll be doing that tomorrow at Thornton Creek since I'm their liaison. I have 3 kindergarten classrooms to read to. I'm excited about that. And I was able to attend the early childhood open house. I think that was last Thursday or the Thursday before. All my days run together nowadays. That was really cool to see their program and see what they're doing. And I do have a meeting coming up with Chelsea to talk a little bit more about or learn a little bit more about GSRP and just sort of hear what the plan might be for that. So they're doing awesome stuff there. Molly's a little too young, but a couple years and she'll be right here.
Speaking of March's Reading Month, and I'm referencing a Facebook post, I just wanted to give a shout out to the owner of Pizza Cutter. I apologize for not knowing his name, for bringing back the stampings that the kids can get. I think that's really great, and it's really supportive of our. You have to probably read a little bit of a longer book. I just really think that's great. We were, I teach at a middle school, and I don't know how we got on the subject, but some students were talking about, they remembered it from their youth, they're 11 and 12, but it does make an impact, and it just, if you're maybe inspiring a reader. So I really appreciate his support to the community. I just wanted to give a shout out to that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'd like to just mention that for those of you who are feeling inspired about reading but not sure about what would be the perfect book to read, that they'll like. Number one, I got some guidance from my fellow board members about their past experience reading, but also I had an opportunity to interact with the librarian, the youth literature librarian here in the Northville District Library, and she is just a font of ideas and thoughts, and if we don't have it on the shelves here next door, they'll get it for you. So there's always interlibrary loan, but it was a wonderful opportunity to really expand my imagination and what books I was going to read at Ammerman. So thank you. And thank you, Melissa. I don't want to mention your suggestion yet because it's going to be a surprise, but we are getting the book that you suggested.
It's a good one.
Fun. I love it.
It's a winner.
Okay, so I'll give you the secret after I get done reading it. Anyway, it's a wonderful way to interact with kids. There's no doubt about it.
For sure. Anyone else have comments? I had a couple, so I wanted to, does anyone else have any? Yours was Beth?
Beth already covered mine, so I'm good.
Anything from you? Okay. Yeah, I wanted to say thank you to the board members that did come and obviously anybody else that joined for the Glow Gala. It was so fun. I think people were really nervous about the attire being, a little bit more casual than years past, but it was great. I walked in and a lot of people were wearing tennis shoes and I was like, okay. I woke up on Sunday and my feet were not sore. Like sometimes they are after an event like that. It was just really fun. It seemed like a great turnout. I really loved the backdrop behind the band with the, the pictures of the art from each of the schools. That's a really awesome just reminder of like why we're here, why we're all around this table, why Glow Gala. That was awesome. I was curious to know about the NHS open house. How well attended was that? Thank you everybody for doing that. We know that also is a lot of work on a Sunday.
Yeah. The kids Tony has it and his team run like a well-oiled machine on that aspect. Were any of you able to attend or see it? You guys kind of know what's going on at the high school. I can certainly get numbers from Tony on that.
Okay.
But it's something, again, that we put out there to try to open us up to the community. So thanks for letting the students and staff, Lisa, know who put that together.
Yeah. And then just my last thing is that we had our conversation during our committee of the whole in February. We have this new superintendent evaluation process. So I know we were talking a little bit. Well, you guys also did your training last week, right? The 3 new board members completed their training through MASB. So this Friday, RJ will share a memo with us regarding his progress towards the goals that have been established, both from our previous evaluation as well as the goals that we talked about during our committee of the whole. And then RJ and I will meet next week to talk about the update that he provided to the board. And then before that, though, I would love to have any feedback from board members once you get his kind of summary. You'll get that Friday if you can just take time over the weekend to send me some thoughts, and then I'll include those when I meet with RJ. And then I know we talked last year about what artifacts do we want to see. So I'm asking for each of you to kind of review it's in the evaluation packet or whatever, the instrument. If you can look at what artifacts you think are relevant to it that RJ will provide to us for his mid-year progress update. We'll talk about that during the COW meeting in April. And then to prepare for the mid-year evaluation, I'm just putting dates out there in advance. You don't have to remember them all. I know Megan will help us stay organized. I'll do my part to keep us organized. But just thinking ahead, because I know we all get busy, we were looking at the week of May 26th. Sometime in that week, RJ would give us all his personal self-evaluation and then any backup material that we asked for. And then on June 17th, we'll do our mid-year evaluation with him. Generally, we can meet in closed session if the superintendent would like to. Otherwise, we can meet in a public meeting, but because we're discussing the
Could you differentiate again what is happening on the 26th versus the 17th? What is the 26th?
I just asked him to give us time to review his self-evaluation. He'll give that to us
on the 26th.
Around the week of the 26th. That gives us
the week of
2
the
weeks.
27th, 17th, we would go over with him.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that gives us time to read it, ask questions.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Typically, we do that too for the annual evaluation that he gives it to us a couple weeks in advance, his self-eval and supporting documentation so that we can read it, understand. If we have questions, then we can ask those questions to him in the meantime before we meet in our meeting for his evaluation.
Okay, so this, just to clarify, since this is a brand new legislatively,
Determined process.
Determined process. Thank you. The word is determined. I thought that the language felt more like a mid-year update on goals, not what every piece of information that you think might go into the final evaluation, right? Am I not understanding what you're leading us?
I don't think it will be the full evaluation tool, but it is kind of that, like, okay, here, we did our checkpoint, and then it will be a more robust process. So we can determine more of those specifics. I really just wanted to put it out there that we'll be coming up with, how do we want RJ to measure his success toward these goals that have been established?
And I believe there's a third one in there in the fall, correct?
Yes, then there would be
But that's a touch base between you and Lisa.
yes.
So touch base at
But
first
he
quarter,
also-
third quarter, and then we get involved in the
But I think
mid-year.
yeah, I think we do have to provide a rubric, though. I don't have it right in front of me, but I do think we have to provide some type of written
There is
Summary
something written, but
that then is part of that mid-year to show that we did
Right.
do that
right, you
mid-year
have to write on
evaluation.
a form of some sort.
Yeah.
That's sure. I'm just wondering about the scope, though. It just seems
Yeah.
like the scope could get out of,
Yeah, that's something that
Bounds.
I'm looking at last year. So my summary was 20 pages for you, for the board that was in place last year, as well as 6 different categories. And I think I counted over 250 pages of information. So managing this in a way that I get you what you all need.
Mhm.
And I think as Lisa's ask on the artifact standpoint of it would be important. It is certainly significant.
Wouldn't the difference
we
can
need
be
to
that,
talk about it.
isn't the difference being that when we meet about this, we're meeting regarding the goals, but when we meet in December, we're meeting regarding the whole evaluation rubric.
Right.
Mhm.
that's
when
how I see it, what you just said.
Yeah, right, but
So
that,
it's
how,
limited, so there are limited numbers of goals, right? So the growth and development, the plan has some kind of, some vision of how that progress is going to be evidenced, and that's what we're talking about, not the whole. Okay, I just wanted to be clear about that, not the entire comprehensive evaluation artifacts that we want to see.
Correct,
Okay,
correct.
So I'm just trying to,
but we would
RJ, I'm
still
just
need,
trying to.
But we
would
still need something from
artifacts
him
regarding those goals
to show us that there is
show us
progress
the
toward the
measure.
goal.
And usually when you agree on the goal, you talk about what's it going to look like. What is reasonable progress for, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, what could we, what are we shooting for here? So so basically at the beginning, you define the target for what you want, where you want to go with this, and then you kind of agree on what it's going to look like, and then you watch for those things to fall into place.
Mhm.
And if there's deviations from what you thought you had in your mind when you began with, then you talk about that at that midpoint. Oh, you know what? This isn't going to really be a possibility, but I could, take a different path to get to
Right,
that
right.
goal. So you can adjust what that looks like if it becomes, impossible or not reasonable.
Right, that's where I think it'll be helpful once RJ gives us his update. We can see, what does this look like? Where are we headed? Do we need to adjust anything?
Right. But that's between you. You have that
But
conversation.
But I also get
Okay.
feedback from the board to have to clarify with RJ.
Right, if that's needed.
If it's needed,
clarification.
right, yeah.
Right. Hopefully, we're all going together down a path, holding hands in unison, mutually supporting.
One can hope.
That's what it's, right, we're skipping down, right.
Right.
So it's
Okay.
a formative, growth-producing kind of dialogue of support and,
That's the vision.
success there. So,
Cool.
that's how I see it. I'm just speaking for myself, but that's how it's worked for me in the past, personally, so.
Well, I feel like we should give ourselves some grace in this process, since this is the first time going through this process.
Yeah.
It feels a little
I mean,
murky.
all of us, new or not, right?
Mhm.
So,
For sure.
kind of figuring that out. I think I'm excited about it, but I do think maybe there'll be things that we feel like, okay, next year we want to implement it a little bit differently.
Agreed.
Right. Well,
I'm not saying we will, but I'm also saying,
Well,
not saying we won't.
I mean, we've got the processes legislated, so.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
But in terms of what you're talking about how we implement it.
Right, I feel like we need to be mindful for
Collaborative.
time as we have
Yeah.
people waiting to join us for our next meeting.
Okay.
Anything else? I just wanted to kind of put that out there in the ether that these are just dates to be mindful around.
Do we have a retreat?
Oh, the other, yeah, I appreciate you guys each getting back to me too about the dates for our possible board retreat. And it looks like April is not going to necessarily work out. We have kind of a hold on the calendar for April 5th. But I think we really want all of us to be there. I think that would be really important. So I think we'll have to circle back to that. And I think May, June is going to be very difficult as well. July is kind of a no-fly zone. So let's table that date for now, and we'll circle back to that at a future meeting.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yep.
Okay. Really quickly, I forgot, I thought of something I wanted
Okay.
to bring up. So part of the Inclusion Week, Ron and I we met up at the Hillside Silent Disco, and I saw Beth there as well.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to give a little shout out to Mary Curran and Carrie Casebeer again. The last couple of years, they've done this silent disco, and the Hillside PTSA has supported them to do this silent disco, and it's so much fun. But I was talking with Carrie Casebeer this year, and through NEF grants and PTSA grants, they were able to purchase their own set of the headphones. And so in years past, they were having to, hire an outside company to come in and do the DJ, and it was pretty expensive. I wrote the check for the first year while I was PTSA president there. But they now have a set of 100 of these headphones, and I got to try them out, and it was so much fun. And they're also talking about loaning them out to other schools in our district so that elementary schools can have a silent disco at their school. And I'm so excited for them. And they're talking, they already have plans to get bigger and better next year and expand their headphones and purchase another 100 so the high school can use them. And they're just, sky's the limit with these ladies.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
That's huge. Thank you
Yeah,
for
it
bringing
was,
that in.
it was pretty awesome.
It was so much fun.
My oldest will not go near the high school's dances because it's just too loud.
Yeah.
It's incredibly loud, but they went to Hillside and they had a blast. So it's really good to accommodate more kids that way.
Yeah.
And,
That's amazing.
and for the parents, we could actually have conversations. And
It was
Yelling at each other's ear.
Yeah, that's amazing.
got some other benefits.
Good stuff. That's wonderful. Okay, anything else? All right, I will turn it over to you then, Dr. Campbell Waitel, for our next motion.
Oh, my word. Let me see here. All right.
Yeah, back page.
Yes, I bring motion 90, that the board convene in closed session pursuant to Public Act 267 of the Open Meetings Act under Section 8H, written opinion of legal counsel, and Section 8C, negotiations as presented.
Support.
All right, we have a motion 90 properly presented by Dr. Campbell Waitel, supported by Secretary Meyer, and we need a roll call vote for this one, please.
All right, Campbell Voitel,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Meyer, yes, Frazier,
Yes.
Mayberry,
Yes.
Maurer,
Yes.
McIntyre.
Yes. Okay, so we will adjourn, or we will move to closed session, and then we will be in closed session for however long we are there, and then we will come back. There will be nothing substantive. When we return to the room, we'll likely just gavel out. Okay, thank you.